Hey, thanks again for joining us on the podium. Today we're going to be talking about the Monza GP. So what do you think about the Monza GP? What were your first thoughts on it?
So the GP, I always like... Monza's always just fun because it's a spectacle.
True.
Because no one's more passionate than the Italians, the Tifosi.
They were wild. I'm not, you know what? They're always wild, I gotta say.
They always are, and it's always exciting at the end of it as well, like when they bring out all the flags and they actually storm the track. But for me, that's always part of it. It's always like, what's the spectacle going to be for this weekend? What's going to be the big story? What's going to be happening? What are people going to remember? And then the big thing that we have to remember as well is the Monza curse.
True.
Right? So, like, if they win the year before, they DNF the year after. So that's been it, I think, for the past 3 years with Gasly, with Danny Ricciardo, and...
There's so many curses now. I know. There's this curse, there's that curse, there's this curse. It reminds me of that scene from The Mummy where this guy's like, don't open the chest, it's cursed. And the guy's like, this is cursed, that's cursed. Everything's cursed. And that's when the mummy comes out and just kills everybody.
Exactly.
So,
but the curse is now over.
It is, that's true. That is true. It's pretty done now.
Max has broken the curse.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he did 10 victories in a row.
Yeah, he beat Seb's all-time record. So, I mean, that he's on top now pretty much. So, what is it? It's Verstappen, Sebastian, I think it's, then you have Hamilton, and then you have, I think, Schumacher, I believe, after that.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's kind of cementing his legacy at this point.
And that's one of the things you have to say. I was just going through TikTok and going through all that, and then, I forget who it was. I was listening to, actually, no, it was the Collecting Cars podcast.
Yeah.
With
Chris Harris, yeah.
And they were discussing, like, what we're experiencing now is history, right? It's one of those things that, like, back when our parents were young, or back, like, in the 80s and the 70s and the early 90s, people were experiencing Senna. They were experiencing that domination. That's kind of what we're experiencing now. Yes, we have Lewis, but Lewis he's won 7 championships. It should have been 8. Yeah. But it's like, now we're experiencing like a force that is Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much going from from an era of where it'd be just multiple teams going back and forth between championships into, I want to say, just domination eras. And I think that's kind of what's going to be, eventually we're going to be going into. Because once, say...
That domination era, Red Bull.
Who's Hamilton's best?
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
George, get out of my room.
I mean, we've seen that. I want to say, I think it started with Ferrari, right? Essentially speaking. I mean, or I want to say going back to McLaren. McLaren, actually. Sorry, you're right about that. It started with McLaren, and then all of a sudden you had, like, you know, Ferrari.
Williams.
Yeah, I mean, Williams did have a short domination. I would say
because they had the special hydraulic suspension.
Yeah, I mean, technically that team, like, Williams back in the day was the most technically advanced team during that era. I do agree with, but then again, they were like every other team was chomping at the bit, though. It's not like they were the
exactly.
So far.
It wasn't what it is now. Like, again, for the past few years when Mercedes was absolutely dominating, but this year is something completely different, right? There's only one constructor that has won a race.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been Red Bull.
That's true.
I
mean, also you have like the Tour de Force that is Max Verstappen as well, right? I mean, there's been no other driver like him since, and I mean, he beats out Hamilton in terms of I guess what's probably going to be expected. You know, if the way it goes, The only thing that would end it at this point is if they get the technical regulations wrong in 2026 when they switch again. Right, so we'll see how that goes, and that's
now I'm just looking down at that book.
Yeah, because he definitely knows how to build a car.
Our boy Adrian Newey
doesn't know how to build a car, but you know what's going to change is they're not going to have that Honda power unit anymore. Ford is going to come in and take over, right? And whatever
but it's not like Ford doesn't have the R&D, I guess. But I mean,
but they don't have that experience like they used to.
That's true,
right? Used to be like one of the last time they exited was like Ford Benetton during the Schumacher days.
Yeah,
right. So they haven't been around since the 90s. So,
but
at this point,
they have been in other facets of racing. They've been in the
other motorsports, for sure, like GT racing and whatnot. But
Ford Performance is still around and kicking, but not to what they used to be. That's true.
I mean, like, I know that they'll have like the IP left over from what they had from Honda, but at that point, like, how much is it going to change even more? Yeah. Right, because they're still running power units that have, like, you know, the energy recovery system in it as well, right? And then you also have, you know, basically what they've been running for such a long time that's been perfected, right? So they have the MGU-K and they have the MGU-H as well.
Yep.
But they're going to remove the MGU-H because, again, remember they were talking about how it's not important anymore.
But even now, though, with Red Bull and the domination, I don't necessarily think, like, yes, their cars are silly powerful and they have a force to be reckoned with, as we mentioned. But even cutting back to this past weekend.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it seems as though other teams are catching up. Even Carlos Sainz has had pole position.
Yeah, I think qualifying pace, I agree.
Qualifying pace, so I think they're getting closer.
They're getting closer. It's not 30 seconds anymore. Because like it was before, like this race, I think when Verstappen was off, I think he's ahead by about 10 and a half seconds, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not the 30 that it was that it first started with.
Yeah.
But now it's going back to, everyone's slowly catching up.
Only took half a season.
Right. But then again, it's going to be another season, right? So, and they're going to be back up at the front again, and then everyone's going to have to catch up again because they're just so far ahead of the development curve. The only thing that's going to be such a mitigating factor for them is like the lack of wind tunnel time. Right, so they're not going to be able to perform as well as they used to, at least in that term. So they'll have to make it up in other effects.
Yeah, that's true. And again, that'll be interesting to see how the other teams really can kind of take more of that wind tunnel time. Because Mercedes are sitting in third still. I think Ferrari is still in second, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. So we'll have to see. Because Mercedes has the power. Their flooring is new.
Their overall package is just not that great. Like, just in terms of balance, the car is not right. Lewis is not able to drive that car whatsoever. I mean, the fact that Russell was ahead of him throughout this entire weekend, it pretty much goes to show how much Lewis was struggling as well.
Yep.
For, again, 7-time world champion. So it's like it goes to show how difficult for even him it is to drive that car.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he doesn't know how to race, right? And he's battled
There's evidence to prove he does know how to race. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, and then again, it's in the past though too. He's driven cars that have not been the best cars, so he knows what it's like to drive a car that's doesn't have the ability to be up there with the rest. But then again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because Mercedes has lost a lot of technical talent to other teams. Right, so it's not the same
McLaren
people
swooping them up, Aston Martin swooping them
exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of changes because then again, how long is Toto going to be at the helm of Mercedes? Right, because for him though too,
he'll be there a while.
You think so?
I think so.
I don't think he has that many years on it, to be honest, because he's thought about it. There's been podcasts about him discussing about how much further he wants to take it. Right, so
I think he's got another 4 years.
4?
I think
Lewis, say 4. I
think Lewis is done 2 after this because him and George just redid
signed that 2-year contract. Yeah,
I think he's going to be there for 2 more years. He's going to leave, retire. He's going to do more of like a Seb role or kind of just overseeing and trying to be helpful to the new people.
I think he'll run a corporate. I think he'll run like no, I'm talking about Toto. I think he'll run like he'll remove himself again in terms of just being on the ground. Right, but I think he'll, of course, him being the business person that he is, and I think because still he has a passion for Formula One and racing in general, I think he'll take a step back or at least develop someone into that role because it's such a huge seat to fill. Right,
Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis. Yeah, I don't know, Lewis. I don't think he could. Bono. Maybe I don't know, but it's not. It's just
because James Allison he went to Williams, and that would have been for sure the one that should have gone through, but. Maybe he'll switch back to Mercedes. I don't know. Because James was the number 2.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's a reason why. I mean, look at the pace of the Williams this weekend.
The Williams was absolutely nuts. It was actually really refreshing to see like the Williams up in that. Albon up in 6th, 7th, 8th, just hovering around there for most of the race.
In the points.
And which is phenomenal to see because honestly, there was the fact that team was about to go belly under and a historic Formula One team was about to never be seen again.
Yeah.
If they went through that rebrand, the Williams would go into history. To be honest, like so many other amazing Formula One teams prior. Whether it's Benetton that won Formula One championships or Williams themselves.
Then Mario Andretti would be like, ooh, it was by this team.
I'm sure like that would be one way to have for the Andretti.
Andretti Williams.
Yeah,
that'd be a sick name. Like
Andretti
there's two
Williams,
names in that fucking sport.
Two mega names, Andretti and Williams. That would be a colossal partnership. I think that Williams would get that cash injection that they need, and of course, Andretti would be able to finally have that entrance into Formula One, which I think they've been just teething at this point. Like they have the funding, they have the backing, they have the support. They even have Zach Brown wanting to lend a hand to make sure that they can get in, because obviously they have a partnership, or at least a relationship, I want to say, in IndyCar.
Yeah, so, but now I think, again, it's kind of now or never for Andretti, because I think in 2026, along with the new regulations for that actual cars and that, it's going to be, they're changing the regulations for how, like, what it takes to get a team into F1.
Really?
Yeah. Well, there's the rumor mill has been spinning around as well, and it's like, because right now a lot of things have to come to fruition for a team to get in, and right now it's like a buy-in of $200 million. And now what they're saying is it's going to be there's rumors for it to be like around 500. So it would, like, for a lot of people it would take more just to buy a team itself.
Yeah, that's true.
Because again, they don't want to dilute the brand, but.
I don't understand and I never understand the idea of diluting the brand when, you know what I mean? Every other franchise, Formula One is making probably the biggest mistake compared to every other franchise, or I would say every other franchise sport that there is. Whether it's, you can see multiple additions of teams in, there have been in football, there have been in hockey. Every other major sport has been increasing the number of teams that they have, because that's just more fans that, or that can pick teams, more merchandise that can be sold, right? And then you can increase the size of your fan base as well. It's not like it's going to divide your fan base.
It's true. Right?
It's like every other sport's been growing. And it's the same mistake that I think F1 has been making in regards to that, as compared to, if you want to compare that to back in the day when F1 did not allow any social media whatsoever on paddock or on the grid.
Yep.
Right. It's the same thing back then as they are kind of doing now, which is a lot of teams archaic thinking, if anything, right? So
a lot of teams are doing it differently. Again, this cuts back to what we were talking about last week with the Garage 56, like NASCAR at Le Mans. Again, they're like figuring new ways to bring in different people, different energy, and different interests. Because I can guarantee you, some people down south in the United States are like, "Oh, there's a NASCAR at this race. I'm going to watch it."
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of the same thing. If you had Andretti.
That's a name
synonymous with United States.
Yeah,
racing
exactly.
United States. Again, what do we know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're limiting it, and it's not like there haven't been in Formula One history. If you're really going to be talking about semantics in Formula One history, there have been more than 10 teams.
Yes.
Right. So and there have been more than just 20 drivers on the grid.
Well, I think it was. The most, again, if you probably check, like, what is the most amount of teams that has been on the circuit? I think it was 12. I want to say 24 cars.
Yeah, I mean, at one point when they had Spiker at one point as well. I remember back in the day, I think they were the 11th. So the last time we had 26 cars on the grid was the 1995 Spanish GP.
Okay.
Right. So it's not like it's not like the one team Montermini didn't start technically back in so it was technically 25.
Yeah.
But, it's still not too long ago. I mean, back in 2012, there were 12 cars on the team, or 12 cars on the grid.
Yep.
Right? 12 teams on the grid.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Right? So it's not diluting the brand, you're expanding the brand.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, like, they're key decision makers who want to, protect. I want to say they're more about protecting the equity of their brand more than anything. And of course that you're going to be splitting the prize money as well, which is obviously the main source of income for those teams as well.
Yep.
But then again, if you're expanding, or if you're able to increase revenue for the F1 brand all over, it's not like you're going to be missing out on that much money. No. Considering how much has grown, right? Because they're going to have to look at other ways as to how they're going to sustain that growth that they've had, because you can tell even in social media or their viewership that it's starting to plateau now, not flatline, but definitely plateau, because obviously you don't have the pandemic anymore to fuel viewership.
Yeah.
And now and obviously you have a drop in viewership with Drive to Survive, because obviously they're into their 6th or 7th season now, right? I mean, at this point, I don't even watch it. Any like Formula One fan per se, unless you've never seen it before, isn't really going to be tuning in to go watch that.
Well, because that's the thing is, I already know what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like they cut to different clips of different parts of the race, and like, well, why are they showing part of the qualifying lap for this? Like, and like adrenaline
it just
part,
doesn't line up.
I don't care.
It just doesn't line up.
I don't care about it. It's like, yeah, I'd just rather watch the race. I'll just watch the season. And
like a nice recap, sure. If there's nothing going on, or if you want to be like a fly on the wall and try to hear some insights that you probably wouldn't have heard before. Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
I just want to hear Will Buxton talk about random things.
Yeah, I mean, I like when when you like one thing is like you never really know what's going on behind the scenes for some teams, right? Whether it's big teams like Mercedes or Ferrari or Red Bull, everything's done behind closed doors, so you never really know what's going on. Especially some of those conversations that we would never be privy to otherwise.
Like during the first season when Guta Steinisch like slammed the
door. Yeah.
All that, like, you wouldn't know.
No, not at all. And then at the same time, there's even the conversations around when Seb was departing from the team about how that was being handled. Like you'd never seen before prior to that show as to what exactly kind of goes on in terms of how a team is strategically planning to release news like that, or create a perception of how things might have gone down when that actually wasn't the case.
Yep.
Because again, it's all about PR, how they want to be perceived by their fans.
Exactly it. That is normally I'm asleep at this time, so the light goes off. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to fix this for us. Oh.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, with that being said, the race, I enjoyed it. It's yes, it was fun seeing like Sainz like trying like jockey to keep position, but
Carlos
he kept position really
extremely aggressive.
We're talking about aggressive,
right?
Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, I mean, that was something else. But I mean, I'm just in terms of like clear, aggressive but fair racing. Like that was phenomenal. It was really nice to see. It almost felt like I thought an old school circuit and old school racing. Yeah, that's what this race felt like.
Yeah, and there was some contact. I mean, like looking back on it, when I think it was Lewis and Piastri.
Yeah.
When they had a little bit of a coming in together, but I mean, just that's racing. Lewis got hit with.
That was Lewis's fault.
It was, but he did. And after the race, he got up, he left his car, and he went over to Piastri to apologize to him as well, which is sportsman. Again, in the when push comes to shove, you're racing, right? You're on a track. You're trying to win.
That happens.
You're trying to do what you want to do. So shit happens.
Yeah,
but
I mean, of course, like there's a big difference between knocking wheels and whatnot and coming to each other, because of course that'll happen. Like you said, it is racing, and there's a big difference between that and obviously like maliciously causing problems as well, right? There, that's totally different from one from the other. But I think in terms of the way that I think Carlos was driving, I think that was phenomenal, considering I don't think I've seen him drive like that before in terms of that, I want to say, level of precision, in terms of him being so strategic about the way that he was positioning the car on every turn, because it was, again, the same turns over and over again. Yeah. And at that point, Carlos was playing a game of chess more than anything, right? About where you're going to move that piece on the board, or I want to say where you're going to put the car on at least before the turn.
Yeah, that's especially when you're coming down the main straight and then like
off into turn one and then turn two.
That is such a long straightaway, and again, if you can only divert from your you can only one move, right? One
move, just like chess, one move at a time.
That's a massive straightaway, and
huge.
Oh geez, when I was watching that, and considering the pace that Sainz had, because the Red Bulls had DRS.
He was able to fight them off. I mean, it was about lap 15 into going to 16 is when that happened, right? So that's to hold him off for 15 laps, because I was expecting lap 3.
Yeah, I was expecting first lap,
right?
I was expecting first corner,
and that was aggressive. I mean, he was really pushing it, right? And I want to say it's crazy how he went from the fact that he went from fighting off Verstappen, and then fighting off Checo, and then fighting off his own teammate till the very end. Yeah. Did you hear that radio message at the very end? From Charles's race engineer.
No.
He's like, it's like, we got to make it to the very end, but keep on racing. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, which one do you mean? Does that mean you're free to go to race, or does that mean hold back and don't mess up the race? At that point, it was a bit of a mixed message. because I know, considering what Charles drove right up until the end.
Plus me, sorry.
He definitely wanted to squeeze that podium in, because he hasn't obviously been on since he won. Right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think. Yeah, I mean, and Carlos was running those tires bald, basically. I mean, they're all, like there was not much of that tire left. The fact that he's able to go right up until the end like that, which again shows, I think, the development of his racecraft and his own technical thinking as well.
Well, we already know that Carlos is an incredible driver, just for making like consistency as well when his car doesn't break down or he doesn't get screwed over on strategy.
Yeah,
he's consistent. He's like, did he get a podium when he was McLaren? He got a podium. Red Bull, Ferrari's gotten a podium. Renault, did he get a podium? I don't think so. No.
I mean, Renault wasn't even a car to be considered to be on the podium at that time as well.
It was the alphatauri at that time.
Right, and even the alphatauri back then again was
Toro Rosso.
Yeah, Toro Rosso, but even then that Toro Rosso was not the car to be making up, it would barely be getting in the points at that point. It's not the same Toro Rosso that Ricciardo drove or Seb drove back in the day where, it's
more reminiscent of the current alphatauri.
Yeah, very much so.
And poor Yuki.
That was brutal. I feel really bad for him, considering he's like so on form right now.
Yeah.
He is driving like him, and I have to give credit to Lawson as well.
Yeah.
Liam has been for his second race only, keeping up with Yuki like that. And again, Yuki being where he is now, and then a fresh rookie, middle of the season.
Yeah.
Not even 2/3 of the way into the season, driving like the way he is. It shows a lot of promise that at least the Red Bull roster still has some depth right now to them. So, considering how many drivers that they've ran through already, the fact that they're still able to pull out drivers of, I want to say, of that caliber, it's pretty phenomenal, I have to say.
Yeah, and just like looking at Lawson, because I know Lawson, what is the Japanese...
Super Formula?
Super Formula, because he was Super Formula, correct?
Yeah, honestly, that's
he was
probably...
DTM, and he was, I think, second in the championship in like the last race. He just lost it, right? In the Deutschland Touring Motors, whatever they might call it. But he's a good driver. An incredible driver.
Yeah, I think for the problem with a lot of young drivers is the lack of opportunity for them, because there's only a certain number of cars in the grid.
At Red Bull, you get the most opportunities because you can afford, and then that gets you in.
That's very true. Yeah, you definitely have the opportunity to show for sure.
That and COVID, and then also what was it? We can all thank Danny Ricciardo getting his seat back at AlphaTauri due to Alex Albon's appendicitis, whatever it was.
Yeah,
like the domino effect all leads back to...
I know, I saw that meme as well. Yeah. One thing just kind of leads to another. It's like the butterfly effect,
exactly.
Right? You just sometimes don't even know how things happen.
Yep.
Right. But it'll be interesting to see how things kind of play out at this point, especially for at least Lawson's career, because I know Ricciardo's going to be coming back. But then again...
Lots of things.
We're going to see... Well, it depends on when he's going to be coming back, though, right?
It depends when he's going to be coming back, and it also depends what they're going to do with Checo.
I think Checo's okay, to be honest, for now. I know he's been struggling in qualifying, but the fact that he was able to make it up, he had some sort of like saving grace at this point with this race.
And to be fair, he was the only other driver to win a race this year.
Well, yeah, he's the only one capable of winning a race against, in terms of at least Red Bull's roster. Yeah. I don't think there's any other driver that would be able to do that if they're able to put it together. Because if you think about it now, Ricciardo needs a few more races underneath his,
Why do I feel like if Yuki had a good car, he would be up there?
It would be interesting to see, but then again, there's a different level of pressure that's applied versus an AlphaTauri seat than there is to a Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why you get relegated to one and not the other, right? Or relegated to one and then promoted to the other, right?
I think it'd be cool. Like, again, I don't know if we discussed this last week, but it was like that one make race that used to happen in the late 80s, early 90s.
Where they all used to drive the same car?
They used to drive...
they used to, the BMW series.
No, it was the Mercedes. It was a Mercedes-Benz 190E.
Oh, is that what it was?
It was the 2.5 liter Cosworth engine Mercedes.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
And it says,
I've seen those old clips.
The center one, that car, the one that Senna drove, it's in Victoria, BC, like just across the water from us. It's at the Audi Mercedes-Benz dealership in Victoria.
I want to go there now.
Oh, they have some cool stuff. Yeah, it's Silver Star Motors, and they got some cool shit.
I honestly just want to make the trip to go see the car. We
Yeah,
can
exactly.
just make a video about that. That is so cool.
Exactly.
We should do a deep dive on that car, like on like Senna's like career around that time, and then also like just to go check out that car.
Yeah,
How cool that'd be.
Make a vlog.
That'd be sick just to make one vlog out of that.
Yeah.
You know.
But I know it's because they did that, and it was always cool because Prost, Senna, like all those drivers, they would all race in the same car. That's why I kind of wish they still had that idea maybe. But again, now it's like, oh, but we can't all agree on a certain manufacturer to drive. I'm like, oh, fuck, I mean, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Because again, it was Mercedes 190Es back then. So, with the dog leg first gear. But yeah, I don't know. That'd be so cool if there's an opportunity for like...
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All the drivers on the grid to hop in a Porsche Cup car or something just to even
that would be cool. Yeah.
Just because, Porsche, they're not in Formula One. They have no affiliation.
No
affiliation.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. If anything, the closest affiliation would be Red Bull. It's just like with all their family ties back in the day. But yeah, I think that'd be cool. It
would be, but I don't think they'd want to do that.
Who do you think would equal machinery?
Equal machinery, as
Nico
Rosberg says.
Yeah, exactly.
Equal machinery.
So if you had the grid of 2023 that can include Lawson, it can include De Vries, it can include Ricciardo, everybody, who do you think would win if everyone was in the same car? Doesn't have to be an F1 car. It can be a race car. It can be a road car for the track. It could be a Black Series AMG. Like, who knows? Who do you think would win?
Wow, that's putting me on the spot now.
I know, you're welcome. I don't see that in your notes.
Oh, I don't have anything like that in my notes for that. Geez, I'd have to really think about that, though, because in terms of... I think it would maybe come down to possibly experience, or in terms of racecraft. I mean, Verstappen just seems like the easy contender because, he's obviously... The way that he's drove, considering he was 16, his just constant involvement in, like, sim racing. That guy just... Did you hear that he put a sim in his private airplane?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's another level of commitment to be saying, on my way to the race, I'm going to be racing.
I agree. That's Starlink in that airplane or something.
Probably.
But it's just like, I'm coming out of left field. I'm saying Bottas.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
He drives other things. He races rally cars. He's run F1. He does track driving and not just Formula One cars.
Yeah.
He's experienced in other facets of motorsport.
True. That's true.
Right? Like, you look at, we were talking about it last week with Yuki and Max whenever they do these weird races.
Yeah.
In the swamp buggies, the monster trucks. Yuki always beats Max.
Yeah, I mean, you have a point there. But then I guess if now you put that in perspective, I would probably put Alonso in there then.
Yeah, Alonso very well could be as well.
Right, considering his stint in IndyCar as well.
But what I'm saying is because a lot of the time, again, these drivers, it comes down to experience as well. And Max, yes, he's a very, very good driver because he's got the best machinery, the best like this.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think experience would come into play at that point. Because, again... Max, I don't think Max really does much track driving besides F1. And that's in real life.
Yeah, I'm sure he's driven some GT cars or something like that as well. Yeah. Or has had his hand in some things and maybe in sessions that we probably don't know about or haven't been recorded for PR campaigns.
Yeah.
But then again, watching him race though, have you ever seen the way that he races though without his helmet or whenever he's on sim racing?
Blink.
Yeah, he does not blink, dude. That guy looks like the Terminator.
I try. When those videos come out every race, we can watch Max go around Spa-Francorchamps and watch his footwork and all that. So I'm sitting there. I'm there at my desk at the office, just watching this. I'm trying to keep my eyes open and not burning, and then I'll blink when he blinks. I can't do it.
No, at that point it's like he's the Terminator. He just does. I mean, he's been terminating everybody on the grid, but I like watching him just in the sim. It's pretty
Adrian Newey. Then that makes him the girl in that. What's
Sarah Connor?
Sarah Connor. That's Adrian Newey. That's him.
That'd be funny.
But yeah, no, I think Bottas.
Really, I could see that. Yeah.
If you want to win, employ a thin.
I like that. I like that slogan. Do you think? Yeah. Where do you find that?
Mika Hakkinen. Mika Hakkinen.
Okay, yeah, the original flying fin.
Exactly. The Mika Hakkinen, back when James May on Top Gear, he went to Finland to learn how to do a Scandinavian flick.
Oh, I watched that movie.
And that was in
film,
like in a Mercedes rally car.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And one of the
Episode.
things that he said is, if you want to win, employ a fin.
True.
I think in that time frame as well. Who was it? It was, I think, Kimi was champion.
Around that time that movie was filmed,
yeah.
that short film, I think so. Or I mean, Kimi was probably around top form. I want to say right around then, or he might have just had won in the.
But that reminds me, seeing James May. That reminds me. Remember when in Top Gear, rest in peace, did like they used to do like star and reasonably priced car. They had the same thing for F1 drivers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What? Yeah, yeah.
Well, I know that they had F1 drivers in the car. They had to put Lewis in there. They put
Danny Rick. They put Jensen.
They put everybody in there. But the thing is, though, the cars did change over time, and I don't think they were all in one season.
The car was. That's one thing. So since the beginning of the Star and Reasonably Priced car, I think they had 5 or 6 different cars. They started with the Suzuki Liana, and then which we don't get, and then it goes up to like the Vauxhall Astra diesel. But I'm still seeing what the times were for the F1 drivers. Top Gear lap time is funny. But they kept the Suzuki for the F1 drivers. It was the same car.
I'm looking that up right now.
Lewis Hamilton, number 1. I don't think this is updated though.
No, here I found the updated one. So here
Danny
you
Ricciardo
see.
First?
No, Seb was first.
No.
Yeah, Seb had 144 flat.
Lewis Hamilton had 142.9.
Yeah, damn.
142.9. Mark Webber, I haven't heard that name in a while. I know he's on a podcast. But, man, Mark Webber, 143.1. Seb Vettel. Then Rubens Barrichello.
Are we looking at the same one?
Yeah, this one. On BBC's website.
Oh, that's BBC. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, so, because Mark Webber did it twice, but it was once in the wet. Same with Lewis, once in the wet. Jensen Button in the wet. But I remember, because Rubens Barrichello, he went on and did a 144.3.
Yeah, that's what I had.
The Stig was a 140.4.
Yeah.
And so when that season, I think it was like the rest of the season, he made a shirt that said, "I beat the Stig."
Oh, really?
And he wore it around the paddock. And he gave he gave the shirts to the other drivers that did it. So that would be Jensen, Lewis, and Mark Webber, saying, "I lost this Stig."
That's so funny. That is hilarious.
But I remember that. So kind of going back to what I was talking about, like the one make race. Kind of had the same idea, but that's just hot laps, right?
Yeah, it's hard to really justify the numbers on that, but I agree.
Liberty Media will be in touch.
Right.
About that one make race. Make it happen.
That'd be great if they did, but I mean, I don't think we'll see anything like that happening anytime soon.
Make a petition.
I mean, at that point, they'll just say race IndyCar if you want to drive the same cars, So I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Or F2.
F2, yeah, I guess so, but I don't. I think there's too much integrity at stake for a lot of the drivers to be, going in there.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So, but it's going back to Monza again. It was kind of crazy watching the Ferraris go back to back at the very end there. Did you see how razor thin the margins were for error?
Yes.
Like you could probably put maybe a couple pieces of paper in between the tires right around the last turn, or the parabolica. That was.
I think it was F1 Troll that put a meme out Charles when he's defending against other drivers. Charles when he's defending against Carlos, and one of them's the scary werewolf that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That Joe Rogan has in his
office.
Yeah,
that was a freaking golden retriever.
Yeah, I agree.
I was I see it. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
he is. I guess
he was chomping at the bit for that. Honestly,
yeah, he was.
He really wanted it at that point. I think because.
But who wanted it more? Do you think?
I think Carlos had every.
Yes, he did.
Had the motivation.
He got pole. That was his to win. I think imagine Carlos Sainz for Ferrari winning at Monza.
That would be mega for his career. I think he would be solidified as one of the Ferrari drivers in the modern era.
Yeah.
Of course, Seb and Kimi and
Barrichello,
Ruben and Alonso and stuff like that. But then again, he'd be a historic name in Ferraris. in Ferrari's long history of drivers. You know, it
I
would
think
be
he'll
just.
do it.
Yeah, I think he has a possible. I think again, he still has a pretty long ways to go in his contract,
Yeah.
right? And even then, I'd imagine it'd be renewed because there's enough friction. I mean, we'll have to see about that. Let's get him in a seat in the first place, right? But then again, I think I don't think there's any friction right now, or at least in terms of a deficit in performance between either drivers. I think that Ferrari
The
seat
deficit is in the Ferrari.
it's in the Ferrari team
Yeah,
as a
exactly,
whole,
not
right?
the
Yeah,
drivers.
yeah, I agree with that because I think the drivers are performing phenomenally. I think they're extracting the most performance out of the car.
Yep.
I just really think that of course, the strategy calls that they're lacking on, just the consistently foolish mistakes that they've been making, ones that for a professional team you just don't think that would happen.
Yeah.
Right. Then again, I think the more forceful that the drivers are in the direction of the team, I think they'll be able to carry them through. And again, of course, we've seen that as an example with Carlos in terms of the way that he's been calling the shots, at least on his side of the garage. And of course,
Yep.
I'd imagine that would translate over to Charles as well.
I wonder if that has anything to do with his Carlos's upbringing, because his dad, right? Carlos Sainz Sr.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz Sr. is multiple time WRC world champion
Dakar
with Audi.
champion.
Yeah, with Audi. Then again, we'll have to see because who knows if the opportunity does come up. And of course, we talked about last week as well. There's been talks about Carlos possibly going to Audi, right?
Yep.
And then again, Carlos Sainz Sr. still has very strong connections to the Audi Motorsport division. So, there is obviously that possibility as well of that running through. And I think if he wants to spearhead that team in partnership with them into something that's into what could be possibly a championship winning team. I don't think it's going to happen obviously right away.
No.
Because if you look at the trajectory that Mercedes had originally taken when they first created that team after buying Braun, and then it took them at least 3-4 years of running in the back, and then moving up to the top of the midfield, and then finally making that transition over when the new regulations came through, right?
As soon as Schumacher retired.
Yeah, well, I think when Schumacher retired, I think people forget that at the same time it was what was left over with what Braun had done with the team as well, right? And then you had Toto step in around that time as well.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you had Niki Lauda's input as well. So you had this, this wave of development that was running through prior to that, that 2013 car coming through back in the day, right? So when you have these huge figureheads that are slowly building up to, what would eventually just catapulting the team to the front of the grid, right?
Yep.
I think Audi would have to do something similar as well, where they'd have to bring in, the
old guard.
The old guard. I think you need for someone to
Vettel.
Yeah, I honestly think Seb would be a likely contender for someone to come in, at least in a technical advisory aspect to it. I don't think in terms of probably running the whole team, right? Because you don't often see many drivers run teams, right? It's just not a thing. And if it is, it usually doesn't work out to be super well. Yeah. Nicky was the loudest, from what I recall, the only one that has remotely any success doing that, right? Back when he was running his team, or Alan Prost when he was running his team as well. So
Eddie Jordan.
Actually, Eddie Jordan did. I don't think he raced though. So, but I know he ran the team. But sorry, I don't think actually Lauda actually ran a team. Prost ran the team, not Lauda, I should say. Sorry, but Lauda's always been an advisor. To correct myself on that.
Yeah, no, you're right there.
But then again, if they're able to culminate a really strong leadership, right? I think they can definitely make waves as well. And of course, they're gonna have to figure out in terms of what they're gonna do in terms of the engine department and how they're gonna be, or where they're gonna be hiring from as well. Because again, they have the depth of course from years of experience. And knowing how to build a successful racing team. Obviously, we've seen that in other categories of racing as well. Yeah. But I think we'll just have to wait and see. Plus, it's so far out as well. It's still 3 years away, right? So, and I know that
3 years would come up like that. Though.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got a point though as well. So we'll have to kind of see, right? Because there has not been a lot about news of them poaching other technical staff from other teams.
No, but they did post. I think they're at 300 and something employees now. They posted something about that on their social media.
Yeah, no, I mean gaining employees for sure, but they haven't at least higher level technical leadership. They haven't been poached anybody yet. Because what my assumption was is at the time, I thought when they brought in Jos Capito over to Williams, and they had Andreas Seidel, who was running McLaren at the time. Those two are both, of course, under the umbrella of Volkswagen. Right under the Volkswagen badge. They were running, both like part of that group, right? So my assumption was they would take that, technical knowledge, management and leadership background, and then funnel that into maybe an Audi or Porsche entry into Formula One.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, neither of those two head figures or key figures in that at the time have moved into that because Andreas Seidel is now Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see what direction that they take in the future. So
it will be. I'm curious who's like, at least I haven't really put much thought into the leadership of the team, but I'm curious how it's going to actually turn out. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see when the time comes.
Vettel, driver and team principal.
That would be a first, but it's kind of already hard enough.
Yeah.
Right. I guess we'll have to wait and see more than anything.
Yeah, we will.
So, I was gonna go back to, going back to Monza again, right? I was thinking about, because we just touched on a few other subjects, including when we were talking about McLaren earlier as well. When Norris and Piastri collided at Monza, it was it had flashbacks.
I was saying flashbacks to Brazil, flashbacks to Spain.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, flashbacks, definitely flashbacks. I don't know what it is. It's kind of funny. The level of friction, for some reason, it's not McLaren that fosters it by any means in terms of creating heat between their drivers.
I think McLaren is one of the least that does it, that creates that.
But it just happens for some reason. I mean, maybe during Ron Dennis's time that he might have, because obviously he was such a hammerhead back in the day. But like, you saw that.
I guess the tension between Jensen and Lewis.
Well, I would say no. It was Lewis. I want to say it was Lewis.
Jensen and
Alonso. It was Lewis and Alonso back in the day when there was that going on. But then of course prior to that you had Senna and Prost as well, and then. It was pretty easy going for the most part for Norris and Carlos at the time.
Yeah.
That was probably like the best relationship you probably saw on the grid at the time.
Yeah.
But then
Yuki and Gasly, come on now.
Yeah, but McLaren, McLaren obviously just them specifically. But again, you don't see, at least maybe, of course, I don't want to count PR campaigns for that team to be a consideration of how the dynamic is between the teammates, because that's often manufactured more than anything.
Yeah. Right? Because
you can often see through that when the chemistry's not there.
But no, even this season, you see like Carlos Sainz and Norris posting like around the jet together, or they're having fun together. They still have a camaraderie. I haven't seen a picture of Lewis. Not Lewis. Of Norris and Piastri hanging out together.
No, and I don't think that's the case as well, because I think because Piastri's level of driving, again, people forget that he's in his rookie year. Right, and Norris has been driving for quite a while now, right? So
which is still nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how. It's crazy to see how quickly time's passed, right? More than anything, but then again, the fact that there wasn't much space given, right, between the two, and even Norris was pushing to be let through as well.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see when the stakes are higher if McLaren's development moves up like it has been, thankfully, at least for the team, right? Considering how much gains that they've been able to make, because considering how far down the totem pole they were at one point.
Even how far down the totem pole they were 5 races ago.
Yeah, I mean, they've made huge gains.
Oh, yeah.
McLaren has been, whatever they've been doing, they're going to have to keep on doing.
That first race when I was like, oh no. I was getting flashbacks to 2015?
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, this can't be good.
Oh, the McLaren Honda days?
McLaren Honda.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. It wasn't looking too pretty for them. But then again, I think whatever they're doing, I think they finally figured out what the key issues were, and that they've been able to finally engineer those out of the car, obviously. Because the drivers are phenomenal. We know that the drivers, even with what they've had, they are absolutely doing their best. Right? And again, they're
Norris has had a couple of podiums this year, and back-to-back at that, I think.
Yeah, I mean we know the level of driving that he's capable of, and we know that Piastri obviously has that as well in the junior Formula categories that he was in prior as well. So, and then again, he's still in his rookie year, so there's still so much room for growth as well. And I think people forget though too is when drivers now that are compared to drivers in years prior. Back then, when Lewis Hamilton went into a Formula One car for the very first time, he had logged in so many more hours of driving time in an F1 car compared to now, where there's really only they get a few hours throughout the season when they do their rookie testing. True. Right? It's so regulated now compared to the way that it used to be.
Yeah, so you just go down to Silverstone and just like have a couple of days there of testing just for the shit.
That's really about it, right? So, and I mean that puts into perspective again how much more difficult it is for a rookie driver.
Yep.
Compared to what it used to be as well, considering how much tighter it's gotten.
Yeah, no, and especially the jump between the actual cars itself, going from F2, which is a spec race in itself, to...
Yeah, and the margins are so much finer for air, like in an F1 car, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, because they're just calibrated so finely, it's ridiculous, so...
What's up?
Hey, buddy. But we'll have to just wait and see what happens with them. But again, if their development continues, and both historical teams being Williams and McLaren, if they're able to completely turn things around, it'd be really interesting to see them fight for top spot as well, right?
Yeah.
Because I could see in the future, as time goes on, is possibly speaking, you have Mercedes and Red Bull sliding to the back. And then you have other teams sliding in the front.
As much as I would love, again, I'm a big Mercedes guy. That's Mercedes, McLaren. Those are my two teams that I support. This is an impartial podcast, but those are the ones I always see myself going back to cheer on. Then of course Williams as well, because again, my family, they're from the UK, and I love supporting those people. But I forgot who it was this year, but maybe it was actually it might have been Mika Hakkinen. Was it Mika Hakkinen? It might have been Mika Hakkinen that said, "Just you wait and see, how because I think he's on the board. Well, not board, but development for McLaren. He's just wait and see. They'll be fighting for towards the front of the grid at some. He said this, I think, second or third race in, and everyone's like, "Wow, holy crap, he was right. What the hell?"
Yeah.
So I mean, and then of course you have Mika, you have Jensen at Williams, kind of being the old guard there, looking after them as well, and. There's something going on in the water of the Cotswolds, clearly, because those two teams they're coming through, which I'm happy because again, those teams itself, they're institutions in F1.
I agree with that as well. Yeah, no, it would be amazing to see more competition, right? I mean, of course, Red Bull is so far ahead at this point. This entire season is just who's the best of the rest, right? And at least there is some challenge, at least between the teams, though, too. There's not a total lockout either. It was great to see.
It's fun seeing McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Benz, even Williams jockeying for position.
Yeah.
Again, it'd be nice to see.
Oh, we forgot about Aston Martin.
Oh, yeah.
They were not even... I don't think there was any coverage at all for Aston Martin. Unless you tuned in through F1 TV specifically to watch the onboard for Alonso or for Stroll.
Yeah, I didn't hear much about them.
I mean... they were nowhere to be seen at all. I think Alonso just squeezed into the points, but they were really struggling this race. It was really I think it really came down to probably the way that the car might have been set up. I don't think they probably got that right. And in terms of even the car as well, considering I think it being a high speed circuit, I think they lacked that, because obviously in medium to slow speed races they do really, really well.
Yes, exactly. Right? Low speed downforce. They stick well. It's perfect. But this course is definitely more set up for cars like a Williams or a Ferrari.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I mean Ferrari cut their car up so much though. That rear wing was not existent.
But everybody has the Monza wing. Everyone has the Monza
wing. I
know
that they do, but I mean it being a draggier car though, considering relatively speaking to the other cars in the grid.
Yep.
I don't know how they were able to extract that much performance out of that. Because my assumption was at that point that Verstappen might have probably pulled out a lead ahead, and he probably would have pulled out a 30-second lead, but that never even happened.
Yeah.
So that was really surprising. On Yuki?
Not even being able to start the race.
I feel really bad for Yuki, to be honest. I mean, again, it would have been very promising to see him race again, and I think it would have been another. I think it would have been another litmus test for Lawson as well. Of course, being
I was about to say that.
In the race as well. So
equal machinery, but
yeah, of course. So I mean, then again, I think Lawson performed extremely well. Like I said earlier, I think he extracted the most that he could, considering the circumstances that he was in. Yeah, he could have probably moved up maybe 1 or 2 places. But considering the car that he has and the experience that he has, I think it was what would have been expected of him. I don't think he would have been, if he was in the points, phenomenal. But if not, it's not disappointing. It's expected, if anything.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean they're using that alphatauri is a Red Bull parts.
It's a C-spec car.
It's a Red Bull parts bin. That's basically that's what that is. Unfortunately for the team.
Parts.
And if you heard about that too recently, that they're going to be using a lot of the as many parts as possible to create the alphatauri car for next season.
Yeah.
Right. So that'll be really interesting to see how far alphatauri can push the regulations in terms of what they're able to take away,
kind of like
from at least from the restricted parts list.
Racing Points when they had the pink Mercedes.
Yeah, the pink Mercedes. Yeah, it was the W11 that they basically copied, right? So we'll have to see what they're able to pull off. I think ever since then, the lines are drawn much thicker, right? And they're the rules are a lot more stringent in terms of what you're able to get away with. But then again, I think
that's why
pushing the limit.
What Force Racing Point did.
Yeah, with Racing Point, what they did back in the day. But I think they're going to be pushing the limit with that. I think they're going to be taking it all the way. And that'll be interesting to see if they're able to pull that off or not, and how well they're able to pull it off. But then, regardless of that, I think there's so many other teams that are going to be pushing for, going from a car that you already have and developing that versus restarting all over again and then developing that. That's kind of an interesting play as to how things are going to work out for them.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see and find out in regards to that. But then again, going back to teams that have been struggling as well, Alpine were also nowhere to be found. It's weird that Gasly just scored a podium
before
and they were just lost. And I could not even understand how they were not able to put a lap together whatsoever.
Again, that car just might not be good for that track.
I guess so.
Zandvoort is a completely different monster than Monza.
That's true. I mean, yeah, of course, I guess there are multiple examples now of other teams struggling as well, and of course there's a shift in the grid as well. Yeah, of course, Aston Martin and then Alpine being the other one as well. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see.
I believe the next race is Singapore.
Yeah, I believe
Singapore, then Japan.
I believe so. Let's take a look.
I mean, Singapore is a tight street circuit, which typically, from past experience, Red Bull has done pretty well. When haven't they done pretty well?
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, Williams did pretty well as well. There's a lot of straight lines in Singapore. Then Japan, you have that straight that goes into the big sweeping right into the S's, and then you go up, then you go right. I mean, let's see. Again, Red Bull's probably going to win. But it'll be interesting to see how those races kind of turn out with these drivers.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And I'm not even paying attention to Red Bull anymore. The best of the rest is...
It's just kind of the way it goes. You're just hoping to see someone trying to eke out a spot, you know, and just some good racing in the midfield. I think that's what it really comes down to.
Exactly. Some trading paint, or it's exciting because you had, like, Lewis getting to a couple of tight situations. But I don't know how his front splitter didn't break.
Yeah,
like
you're right about that.
A couple
impacts.
There,
German engineering, right?
Yeah. That's true. Well, hello again.
Yeah, I think he's gonna make another appearance here.
Yep. He's
gonna find a spot. Hopefully,
what team are you choosing? Big Ferrari guy.
Big Ferrari guy. Yeah, that's what he wants. I mean, there's 2 Ferrari hats, so you could have kind of chosen.
And then Shell is also a Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly. So, I will probably have to just wait and see. I wonder what they're gonna do about that, because now this is the second most recent time. Obviously Red Bull did have a short reign of those 4 years with Seb before there's that long campaign of Mercedes winning so many races, and then now the speculation of Red Bull being as far as they are, and just the gap in performance versus the other the other grid.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what I guess the regulators of Formula One are able to do in terms of.
But
you know,
I agree. But then it comes down to how much can they really change that, making it seem unfair, and then you have so many different things, and that's so many different arguments. Like, oh, they're taking favoritism on.
They always say that. Everyone's like the fans
but
are
if,
always.
But if the team just buggered off, like at this rate, like freaking Verstappen can start from pit lane, still win.
Yeah.
Actually, like again,
probably
it's just again because what Formula One is, it's a business.
Yeah, that's true.
They need to do what's best for the business.
Good point.
Which would not be Red Bull winning every race.
Yeah.
Right? So again, it'd be nice to see. I hope I just see one like a different driver win that's not a Red Bull driver.
Yeah.
I just want to see like Red Bull, Ferrari, or Mercedes, Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, the only way I see that happening is if Max somehow crashes in the wet or something like that.
Can you see how many engines he has left?
I don't think they've run through any engines yet. I don't think there's that. I don't think they're going to be taking penalties soon. I know that.
Yeah.
They're going to be taking those engines out soon. It is that time of the year, so it'll be. But that's going to be every team, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing, though. You're going to be strategic about when you're going to be taking that penalty and how early on. But then again, those are time penalties or grid place penalties, right? So if you're already up in the running as well,
that's
right?
not like what I'm curious about. I just want to know how old Verstappen's engine is, so it can blow up.
I mean,
I just want to see. I just want to see a close race.
Yeah, I know. Well, they figured out ever since last season. They figured out those issues that they had early on, right when those cars put out.
I remember that.
I mean, it's crazy how much has changed from like this season versus last season.
Yeah.
You know, considering we all thought Ferrari was going to make huge gains, you know, and they actually had. They were really far well in their development. Mm-hmm. It's just they couldn't keep up. As soon as Red Bull had the issues figured out, you know, and they were able to resolve those gremlins in the engine, at that point, you know, it's just kind of how it went. Because that, again, they were able to just keep on going and going with that development. It just wouldn't stop, and it continued, considering, again, the deficit versus the other teams, you know, or the advantage, I should say, compared to the other teams. Yeah. It's phenomenal. And then again, we'll have to wait to see until the new regulations probably. Because I don't see anything. Yeah, I mean, they're like. But
I mean, at that point, because if Max wins this championship, that's 3, right? Well, when he wins the championship, that's 3.
Yeah.
So then, that's 2023.
Yeah.
That'll be the 2020. Last race is in November? No.
The last race of the year is going to be in.
November?
Is going to be November 26th, Abu Dhabi. Okay.
So then that gives 3 more. So that could be 6 championships, and then that's the new. We'll put 2 more championships with the new regulations.
Yeah. 2 more championships.
That's 5. Lewis is still winning.
Yeah.
But again, that's if Red Bull doesn't. Well,
I think it'll be.
Adrian Newey doesn't come out again with smoking that jazz cabbage that gives them the beautiful car, but.
Yeah. I think I think honestly they have until the regulations for that campaign. Yeah. Because every single time the regulations change is when usually things switch up, right? Because I think what we might see is up until 2025, if they're whether it's Ferrari or Mercedes at that point, because honestly those two are the only real contenders, unless Aston Martin's able to make huge leaps and bounds. We might see another very close fight again. Yeah. But we'll have to wait a couple years at least.
We'll see.
Right. So, but then again, we're at that point it's just predicting the future, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, even with Haas as well, like there really wasn't. I mean, I think Nico drove really well. I think but I like then again.
I have not. I'm gonna be completely honest. I have not paid attention to Haas at all this year.
I mean, most people haven't. Really,
I'm gonna be something come out and say it. Like, again, it's just like, like came back last year, and I thought, wow, that was really cool. Yeah. When he got that call and hearing the whole story and all that stuff. But this year, just,
Yeah, I mean, they're not, again, 8th in the championship right now. And then again, It's kind of funny though. They're 8th in the championship, which is, I mean, decent for them. They're not dead last like they usually are.
They're beating Alfaromeo and...
They're beating Alfaromeo and alphatauri, right? So,
how many points do they have?
Haas is 11 points.
Oh.
Yeah. And Williams is 7th. So, I mean, that's good for them. I think Williams being...
They're progressing.
They are progressing. I mean, that, again, being dead last for so long and, again, nearly losing their place in Formula 1 entirely, I think they're slowly making gains. I don't think Alpine has been able to figure it out compared to how they were prior.
I mean, like last week they did.
Last week they were able to, but like I think they were just able to put that race together.
Yeah.
In terms of the car's development, like it's just, I don't think they've been able to extract that level of performance out of that car yet. Been able to really just figure out how to move it forward up the grid, if that kind of makes sense, right? Because there hasn't been a whole lot of examples, I want to say, for them to do consistently well throughout the season for the most part.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Again, time will tell. Again, I always find myself like kind of wanting them to do well. I'm like, come on, you guys can do it. But then like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back at it as well, like the last time they were able to collect any points haul again was like Monaco. You know, there's they might be 9th, 10th, 7th, 11th or something like that.
It's consistently average.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they've made that breakthrough. I think that they did well in Spa.
How many points does Williams have right now?
Williams is sitting at 23.
Nice.
Right, so they're not so far behind, but then again, just looking at them, there's been multiple cases where they've scored no points, or very few points, and like again, Spa and Zandvoort as well.
There were seasons where they didn't score any points.
True.
Right.
But then again, I feel like they've been just yo-yoing. Like they've been just a consistently midfield car for the most part. They just yo-yo back and forth, and a little bit higher in the midfield and a little bit lower in the midfield. They haven't had that breakthrough like they had back in Alonso's heyday.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think they've been able to, or I guess I won't even say when there was Lotus run Renault team at the time.
Yeah, but that's not. That's
and that was I mean, and that was Kimi driving as well, so
exactly.
That's obviously why. But in terms of their development, they'll really have to either turn their leadership around, or because they did sack Otmar Safnauer as well, right? So
yep, he's out enjoying his best life. There's videos of him driving.
He's just taking selfies like a divorced dad.
I know, it's really funny. And he was in the Cotswolds of the UK in England.
Yeah,
driving his Ford GT.
Yeah, he's
with his Florida license plate in the UK. I mean, this is really weird. It's like the opposite.
I mean, he can afford it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's no issue for him. But he's out there, putting things. Just taking those
on his Instagram. Like, oh no.
Facebook dad selfies. Yeah, he's out there.
It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
I saw those photos and made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, but in terms of their development, I guess we'll have to see, because the drivers are capable.
Yeah.
Like Ocon's always been, up there as well.
Yeah, and Gasly's,
I think again because he doesn't have that Red Bull pressure on him anymore.
Yeah.
I think he's able to extract more out of the car and focus on his driving.
Gasly.
Yeah.
As Danny Ricciardo would say.
Yeah, exactly. And then going back to Ricciardo again, I think we'll have to see what happens with him, because again, I don't know if he'll be able to make it back in time.
It's gonna be after Japan.
It will have to be. Yeah, I think he's gonna probably hop into the last little bit of the season here.
I agree, because after Japan we have
you have Qatar. Yeah.
Then we got Race of the Americas, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
I think he'll be back for Qatar.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, around October?
I think Japan's still a bit too early, September 23rd.
Yeah, I don't think he'll make it in time for that.
I think Qatar he'll be back.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. That'll put, again, pressure on...
Lawson?
No, because I think Lawson's going to be back into a test driver role or development driver role again.
I think Yuki?
No, I don't think it's pressure on either of those two. I think, again, the pressure is back on Checo. Right? Yeah. The pressure is going to be back on Checo to perform consistently well, to be at least... Again, the expectation is, P2. That is the minimum expectation of that car because of the level that car is at, right? So if there's any excuse not to be in there, of course, if something else happens, like of course, if another driver hits you, that's out of your control. But besides that, if you're not performing at that bare minimum level, we know what happens at Red Bull, right? But exactly. So again, if Ricciardo's consistently performing at top level, and then again, he has to be performing above Yuki at that point.
Yep.
Right, and if he consistently shows that, then obviously it puts even more pressure on Checo to be performing at the highest level that he can. Obviously, with the highest, the most formidable driver on the grid right now, and that's no easy feat as well, right? Because I don't think people understand the focus on Max in the garage by Red Bull. Because all the development of that car throughout the season is about Max's driving style.
Yeah, it's like
right,
it's like
and
Checo
that's how it's
like
always favored.
Like Checo was like the lesser favorite child, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's always the case though. Ever since they brought him on, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the reason why that's how it has been is because Red Bull were his last opportunity. So Red Bull, like, we're giving...
But he deserved that opportunity, though, right? When he drove through the back of the Secure Grand Prix, he drove the wheels off that car to win that.
But do you think, again, this is me being speculative, it's like, do you think that's why Red Bull's like, we gave you that opportunity, so sit back and let our star boy do what he needs to do?
I think we always know Max is a guaranteed result, though. So it's almost like you have high odds already, and then you're just going to what do you say? Maximize that, if anything, in terms of being able to like get that result, right? You're gonna just basically like compound the ability of you to do that. So if they kind of split their odds with Checo as well in terms of focusing on development favoring towards him, that might not be guaranteed as compared to what, again, Max is able to extract out of the car. And if they're able to provide exactly what he needs all the time, then you're almost guaranteed those results. And we see that now, right? Yeah. If you make a car for him, then he'll be winning those races at that point. But then again, we've seen that with every other driver that's been in the garage beside him. You know, we've seen that with Ricciardo. We've seen that with Gasly and Albon as well. So, and then Sergio's been I don't think people underestimate, again, being compared to one of the best drivers of all time consistently, right? And the fact that he has to perform at that level all the time, every single race. And then on top of that as well, him supporting him throughout the race as well. Because I think people forget very quickly how much of a role Checo played in that first championship that Max won. Oh, yeah. Because Checo wasn't there, and the amount of defensive driving that Checo had to do in order for Max to win that race, I think Max would have lost by a decent margin by then. And I think fans forget that really quickly, right? Because again, if you put another driver in that seat, and that same pressure was applied to Max again in that situation, it wouldn't have happened. There would be no possible way.
And then Checo, of course, like, is Checo being Checo, he's like the master of the tires, right?
He
brings valuable info. He does all he needs to do.
Yeah, and it's not like, again, there's so much data already about, of course there's certain inflection points as well in his career, but then obviously in recent times or in recent races we've seen as well where he has been struggling. But that happens with every driver. You've seen that with championship winning drivers as well, right? 100%. It's not an unknown thing, and it's crazy how the fans change so quickly, right? And then again, a lot of it's media driven as well, right? Because it's always the news, like other like traditional media, at least in Formula One, sensationalizing things just to get more more viewership, right? That's why they ask all those antagonizing questions over and over again at press conferences, because if you can ask the nice questions, then you're not really going to get the clicks. Yep, exactly. Right? And then again, that obviously influences the way that a lot of fans think as well. And of course, it's funny. I'm not going to lie. The memes are hilarious. Everybody loves the memes, and that this is all part of the fun and games of what it is. And that's in every sport. That's just known, right? But I it's not like there's going to be such a quick change as well, because people again forget so quickly. Only a few seasons ago, how much room Gasly was given and how much room Albon was given to perform before they were sacked, right? And it's not like Checo's been deep down in, P11, P14, dead last or anything like that. Again, in terms of what's expected, obviously he's not been performing in that. But then there might be other factors as well that we just are privy to.
Exactly.
Right.
Until you watch Drive to Survive.
Yeah. Again, that's when we might find out. And again, with those, in those backroom conversations with the cameras, what actually might have happened around that time. But then again, no one really knows, right? And then sometimes, again, you have to realize that like these drivers are people as well. And then again, there's things might be outside their racing careers that might be going on. Or the fact that sometimes you just get into a funk. Like it just doesn't click that someday, especially when you have so much external pressure as well. That can really mess with your head as well, because a lot of other drivers talk about it as well, and Rosberg is one of them, right? Having to go up against Lewis Hamilton, how much mental focus he had to have in order to go beat Hamilton.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree.
So then again, to be put in that pressure cooker, it's a lot to deal with for more than anything. So
yeah, no, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.